We're here at the HFMA annual conference in Las Vegas, and we're here with Brett Reed from Cohealo. Welcome, Brett.
Yeah, thank you, John. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'm excited to share with my audience about the Cohealo and your product. So tell us a little about the origin of it and where are you at today?
Yeah, sure. So the company was founded about 7 years ago in Miami, Florida, out of the Graduate School of Business at the University of Miami. And one of our co-founders was selling medical equipment into the hospitals, specifically a laser into the surgical suite. And he'd sold equipment, it's about $150,000 laser into a hospital. Doctor used it 1 day a week, and then it sat in the hallway the rest of the time. And like a good sales rep, he went down the road looking at another hospital, trying to sell that laser into the hospital. The doctors loved the technology. They wanted to get it. They wanted access to take care of their patients. They went to the CFO, and the CFO said, sorry, we don't have the budget, and quite frankly, I don't think we have the patient volume for this.
Not 1 day a week.
Not 1 day a week, that's right. And so looking at that, he looked and said, well, here's a laser I know 50 miles down the road under the same parent organization, sitting idle. Here's a hospital that needs access to that laser. How can I not facilitate the access to this? So that was the spark that led to Cohealo starting 7 years ago. And so when we first built the company, we really focused on creating an equipment marketplace. You know, setting up exposing the equipment in the platform, and then allowing hospitals, whether they were in the same parent organization or not, access to that equipment. We went after that. We bought trucks. I put the first truck in my name. I was the first driver of the truck. We moved a bunch of equipment around, and it was a very successful model in the beginning. We were doing a lot of movement of equipment, a lot of transactions, but what we were finding was that, one, health systems that weren't affiliated with each other weren't quite ready to share. They were still working out, very early in healthcare's sharing world where, an OR director at one facility wouldn't even necessarily know her counterpart at a sister facility. So that was one problem. And the other that we were running into is that we were moving a lot of equipment, and then all of a sudden a hospital would stop requesting the equipment. So when we'd call them and say, what's going on? They would say, oh, you know what? Service is fantastic. We borrowed it for 6 months. We justified the purchase. Thank you very much. And that was a big aha moment for us to go, that's not changing the business model. We're just becoming a justification service for this hospital to buy the equipment. What we really want them to do is share in the cost of the ownership with their other sister facilities and really gain that economy of scale. So as a result, we did a lot of research, and we realized that in order for us to do that, we really need to become integrated in all of the equipment that's being scheduled, regardless of whether it's being shared. So that led to the creation of our newest product called Cohealo Track, which is really a foundational product that goes in and helps hospitals understand how often they're using their equipment, regardless of whether it's being shared. So we benchmark that usage of the equipment, and that allows us to share much more proactively within a particular health system, and it is only within a health system now.
So that's really impressive. Because this expensive medical equipment isn't getting used. It's probably not getting tracked very well. So what are some of the stories you found as you've started to track that, and I think you probably have the same problem that many people have, we have a perception that something's happening when it's not really. I mean, EHRs expose that a lot in the health IT world, right? Where, oh yeah, every single time I prescribe this, and then we look at the data and no, you don't. So what are some examples of experiences you've had with that?
Yeah, so we have a lot. And so what I think our hospital systems find out is that the administrators will buy the equipment, and generally they do a lot of work in justifying the purchase, but they don't necessarily do a lot of work in figuring out how the equipment is doing for them once they make the investment. It's not because they don't want to, they just haven't had a solution that allows them to do that. Got a great example. We went in, we deployed Cohealo Track, and we found a particular surgical microscope that hadn't had any use in the 6 months that we had been deployed. And so we went and researched that. We found this microscope sitting in a back closet with a plastic tarp over it, and a date that had 7 years ago where it was transferred into that hospital. Wow. It's a $250,000 microscope. They had no idea that was in that closet. We've also seen a surgical laser that had no use through our platform, and we found out that the doctor who had been purchased for had retired and moved to Arizona. Well, here's a $90,000 laser that they just weren't using and had no need to use it anymore. None of the newer doctors wanted access to that laser, so they sold it and realized $90,000 back on their books.
Nice. So some of it's just tracking the equipment so they even know what they have. Some of it's knowing how much usage it is. You talked about before we did this, there's also some proactive understanding of what's needed or even purchase requests. Tell us about your work there.
Yeah, so as a result of being able to benchmark the utilization of equipment across sites in a given geographic region, as well as the ability to share the equipment proactively through our Cohealo Share product, we're able to actually understand at a true system level how often the equipment's being used at all their facilities. And as we go through a capital purchase cycle and we get access to all the capital equipment requests, we're able to identify requests that aren't necessarily needed to be fulfilled. So either they're not needed to be fulfilled because the data shows that there's available capacity in their existing equipment fleet and they can just share that equipment between the facilities, or there's so little use on equipment as they own it today that they can actually just reallocate that equipment to the requesting site and not spend the corresponding capital. And last and most importantly for us is the ability to combine multiple requests for the same piece of equipment into one purchase and then share it based on the needs of the facilities.
And that's pretty cool because, 3 requests for the same equipment might each get denied individually because there's not enough utilization or whatever, but together, then they all get satisfied. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's how we view our platform supporting, really a true equipment efficiency initiative with health.
Yeah, and then they can use it from acquisition all the way through, eventually it sounds like you may need a product of what do I do with the equipment at end of life as well. But what is some of the equipment that you're seeing most success where people are really wanting to track it, wanting to share it? Is this the full spectrum of equipment or what are, the top ones that you're seeing tracked?
Sure, I think that's a great question, John. So we are primarily focused in the surgical suite today. Certainly there's a bunch of equipment in what I call the patient care space, everything that goes on you in a bed. That's not our core focus today. But in the surgical space, which is obviously the largest revenue driver for a health system, there's a lot of equipment that we work with. Everything from radiology and imaging equipment in the surgical suite, such as C-arms, O-arms, ultrasound machines, things like that, all the way through surgical robots, the Mako, the Navio, down to specialty instrumentation kits, and really everything in between. Some of the equipment that gets a lot of interest initially, a lot of specialty orthopedic tables like HANA tables, Jackson tables, trios, surgical lasers in the urology suite, holmium lasers, green light lasers, KTP lasers, ESWAL tables. So there is no shortage of equipment that can be shared. And what's great about once you start an equipment efficiency initiative, the goal isn't necessarily to move a bunch of equipment around and have it flying all over the place because that's not the in-game goal. The in-game goal is to make sure it's where it needs to be to do the most surgical and patient cases necessary.
Yeah, it's impressive. Well, thanks for sharing. I think this is a really interesting area, especially as we see consolidation in healthcare. There's going to be more underutilized machines that could be shared as the health systems get larger. So I think it's a really interesting initiative. Thanks for sharing your story, and thanks for everyone that watched this video. If you like this content and other great healthcare IT content, check it out at healthcarescene.com.